Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers free speech, loud music, and traffic citations, and is brought to us by Columbus Police Body Cameras channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. Before we dive into the interaction, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this episode, Surfshark. Surfshark is a premier VPN service that offers unparalleled digital security for a fraction of the price of other competitors. We all know that Surfshark is one of the most secure VPN tunnels on the market, but a Surfshark subscription also allows its users to bypass region restrictions on popular platforms like YouTube and Netflix and view content that's not normally available in your country. Thanks to Surfshark, I can browse all the shows on my favorite streaming apps even if they were removed from the US catalog. Right now, Surfshark is offering the ATA community an 83% discount with an additional 3 months completely free when you use code AUDIT. With 24-hour customer service and a 30-day money-back guarantee, you have absolutely nothing to lose. So, click the link in the description to claim your exclusive offer now. Thanks again to Surfshark for sponsoring this episode. In a video posted on December 28, 2020, an unidentified officer from the Columbus Police Department in Columbus, Ohio, was refueling his patrol car at a Marathon gas station when he noticed loud music playing from a nearby vehicle.
Playing this music loud, profanities spilling out. Well, next to the kids trying to say. Man, keep that down a little bit, okay, please? Just keep the music down a little bit.
Wow.
Number one, because it's a noise ordinance violation. Number two, it's profanities, and there's little children out here.
The Columbus officer approaches the Spectrum employee's vehicle and orders him to lower the volume of the music that's playing on his radio. When the driver questions the officer's command, the officer informs him that he's violating a noise ordinance and potentially exposing nearby children to profanities. We will discuss the alleged noise ordinance violation later in this episode, but as mentioned in many episodes of ATA, the use of profanities is generally protected under the First Amendment. Although Section 2917.11 of the Ohio Revised Code states that, quote, "No person shall recklessly cause inconvenience, annoyance, or alarm to another by making unreasonable noise or an offensively coarse utterance, gesture, or display, or communicating unwarranted and grossly abusive language to any person." Profanity that is not meant to intimidate others or provoke a violent response is typically considered free speech. While the 1942 Supreme Court case of Chaplinsky versus New Hampshire laid the foundation for First Amendment protection of profanities, it also established the precedent for speech to be regulated under certain circumstances. The Chaplinsky court developed the concept of so-called fighting words and defined it as, quote, "words likely to cause an average addressee to fight." However, courts have since developed different interpretations of fighting words that consider the context of the words as much as the words themselves. For example, in the 2002 South Carolina Court of Appeals case of City of Landrum versus Surratt, the court noted that, quote, "the determination of whether profane words constitute fighting words depends upon the circumstances surrounding their utterance, and that factors such as, quote, "the presence of bystanders, the accompaniment of other aggressive behavior, and whether the words are repeatedly uttered should be considered." The court went on to clarify that, quote, "whether a communication constitutes fighting words also depends in large part on the addressee of the communications." Considering that the Spectrum employee was not directing his music at anyone in particular or in a hostile manner, it is highly unlikely that the content of his music would constitute any kind of violation. However, it is important to bear in mind that the environment and context can play an important role in considering the legality of similar situations.
All right, thank you. He's repeatedly played music too multiple times. Keeps driving by me, doing it over and over and over. $73.12.
7312.
Alley between South Harris and South Warren Avenue, just south of Wicklow with the 10-6 Ohio tag.
I got it.
License, registration, proof, insurance, please.
What are you pulling me over for?
Loud sound. 25 feet away is the minimum that you can't blow past.
After being warned by the officer, the Spectrum employee left the parking lot of the gas station, and the body camera footage cuts to the officer initiating a traffic stop on the Spectrum employee moments later for allegedly intentionally driving nearby the officer multiple times with music blaring from his vehicle. The officer informs the Spectrum employee that he is being stopped for, quote, loud sounds because his music was audible from 25 feet away. In the 2010 Ohio Court of Appeals case of State versus Carrick, the court noted that, quote, Ohio courts have concluded that an ordinance that regulates the volume of noise, as distinguished from the content of speech, is not unconstitutionally vague if it incorporates a reasonable person standard, which means that townships and municipalities in Ohio are well within their authority to regulate any noise that takes place within their city, so long as the regulations are content neutral and serve some sort of purpose that's beneficial to the public or the government. Many cities across the state of Ohio have adopted noise ordinances in an effort to control noise levels, each with their own language and relative authority. For example, Section 909-5 of the Cincinnati Code of Ordinances outlaws, quote, any noise emanating from a motor vehicle which is plainly audible at a distance of 50 feet from the motor vehicle. The city of Cleveland took a more direct approach through Section 683.02 of the Cleveland Code of Ordinances, which states that, quote, no person shall play any radio, music player, or audio system in a motor vehicle at such volume as to disturb the quiet, comfort, or repose of other persons, or at a volume which is plainly audible to persons other than the occupants of said vehicle. Section 2329.11 of the Columbus Code of Ordinances appears to be the only ordinance that regulates any type of noise within the city, and is likely the ordinance that the officer is referring to. Although this section largely regulates the sounds of construction, events, and heavy machinery within the city and around residential areas, subsection C1 states that, quote, no person shall make or allow to be made any unreasonably loud and or raucous noise in such a manner or at such a volume as to disturb the quiet, comfort, or repose of a person of ordinary sensibilities. The ordinance defines loud or raucous noise as, quote, any noise or sound that emanates in such manners and or volume and is of such intensity, character, and duration to be offensive or disturbing to a person of ordinary sensibilities. While there is no mention of any distances in subsection C1, another subsection of the ordinance states that, quote, no person shall operate or permit the operation of any sound amplification system, auditory device, or stationary sound source from real property that is zoned residential in a manner as to be heard at a distance of 50 feet beyond the property line. This is likely the subsection of the statute that the Columbus officer had incorrectly interpreted as applicable to this interaction. However, because subsection C1 of the statute simply prohibits unreasonably loud or raucous noise without any limitations based on zoning, a court could conclude that the Spectrum driver was violating this section of the Columbus noise ordinance, both while parked at the gas station parking lot and while driving.
Come on, man. You ain't got nothing better to do.
License, registrations, insurance, please.
Well, it's a company car, so
So you should have insurance.
Yeah,
Can you find that? And can you find your license, please?
in my pocket. Can I get that?
Yes, you can.
What's going on? Y'all ain't got nothing better to do. But I'm listening to music.
Sir, you brought the problems to us. I was going there to get gas,
Do what you gotta do.
and you repeatedly followed me
Okay.
and circled me. So that's on you.
No, I just drove
Do
around.
you have proof of insurance?
It's in here somewhere.
Why don't you look for that for me?
Okay.
Yep. All right, here is your license. Need a signature for you here. It's
Nah,
not
it's not
admission of guilt.
Not happening.
Okay, refused.
The officer attempts to issue the Spectrum employee a citation, but he refuses to sign it, and he goes on to deny the officer's assertion that he must attend court. As mentioned on previous episodes of ATA, so long as they have acquired probable cause, members of law enforcement are generally within their authority to arrest anyone for any suspected violation, regardless of severity of the violation. Citations serve as a means to hold individuals accountable for minor violations of the law, and to provide them with an opportunity to dispute the charges in court court without making an arrest. Unlike most states, Ohio has drafted specific statutes and established legal precedent aimed at reducing the potential for citizens to be arrested for minor violations. In the 2003 Ohio Supreme Court case of State v. Brown, the court held that, quote, "It is not necessary for an officer to arrest an offender for committing a minor misdemeanor offense unless he has reason to believe that the offender will not respond to the summons or pay the fine." And under Section 2935.26 of the Ohio Revised Code, quote, "When a law enforcement officer is otherwise authorized to arrest a person for the commission of a minor misdemeanor, the officer shall not arrest the person, but shall issue a citation." However, the statute also lists specific exceptions where an officer may arrest citizens for misdemeanor crimes, which includes refusing to sign a citation. In the Brown case, the court specifically mentioned that, quote, "The government's interests in making a full custodial arrest for a minor misdemeanor offense are minimal and are outweighed by the serious intrusion upon a person's liberty and privacy that necessarily arises out of an arrest. However, this procedure only applies, quote, absent any RC 2935.26 exceptions." Even the Columbus Police Department's policy includes a section advising officers that they may, quote, "use discretion to arrest and slate or issue summons to an individual for non-violent misdemeanor offenses when warranted based on the totality of circumstances." Considering that refusing to sign a citation is a violation of Ohio Revised Code that has essentially been upheld by the Ohio Supreme Court, it is very likely that the Columbus officer would have been within his authority to arrest the Spectrum employee for refusing to sign the citation. But the officer elects to accept the driver's refusal to sign and continues issuing the citation.
You have a court date.
Nah, I don't.
If you choose not to attend it, it would be a warrant.
Is your badge number and everything on there?
It is.
Okay.
I'm the issuing officer.
Definitely.
The court date, should you choose to contest the ticket,
Oh, no,
is on the 22nd at 9:00 a.m.
Okay. You gonna be there?
Yes, if they summons me, probably not the first one, but they'll probably set it for a
He
trial.
had nothing better to do, so he wrote a ticket. So he was just bored.
Sir, you brought it to me by circling me
that's all.
repeatedly.
That's all.
You repeatedly circled me and tried to get my attention.
Okay, so I'm gonna call my sergeant friends now, and we'll talk about that.
You can
Have
go
a good
ahead,
day.
sir.
Good. Yep, bye.
Be careful when you're driving. Keep your music down.
Yep.
Alright, that guy was clearly looking for some sort of police interaction. He repeatedly circled me in the lot. I told him to turn his music down once because his blaring profanities all over the parking lot. Right next to little children. He questioned me about that and got mad that I told him to turn his music down and stop playing profanities in front of children. He promptly went around the side of the building where he waited for me to get done pumping gas and come out of the store. He then drove by me blaring the song "The Police" across the parking lot so as to be heard from well over 50 feet away. Numerous citizens were also complaining about him in the parking lot. So he went out of his way to circle me and try to engage me.
After issuing the driver a citation, the Columbus officer returns to his patrol car and verbally recounts his version of the events to his body camera before leaving the scene without further incident. Unfortunately, not very much information was available regarding this interaction or the outcome of the legal proceedings. If you have any information regarding this interaction, feel free to comment below and I will update the description as necessary. Overall, the Columbus officer gets an A-, because although he seemed somewhat confused about the language of Columbus's noise ordinance, he maintained a calm and relatively professional demeanor despite the driver's attitude, and remained within the bounds of his authority throughout the interaction. As mentioned in the episode, the profane nature of the music was not a relevant factor in the legality of this interaction. However, the officer appeared to be under the impression that he retained the authority to stop the music based on its content alone. This is a common misconception amongst members of law enforcement, and there are very few situations where an officer would be within their authority to stop music because it's too profane. The officer also incorrectly cited the so-called hearing distance language of the Columbus noise ordinance, but did not appear to do so maliciously, as the driver's alleged conduct would still fall within the scope of the ordinance regardless. The officer was within his authority to arrest the driver for refusing to sign the citation, and I commend his decision to allow the driver to leave the scene with a ticket. Although this officer wasn't necessarily correct during every point point of this encounter, he ultimately remained within the bounds of his authority and carried out this stop with professionalism and courtesy. The Spectrum employee gets a C- for refusing to sign a valid citation, failing to invoke his right to remain silent, and for maintaining a hostile and confrontational attitude throughout a majority of the encounter. Whether or not the unnamed employee would actually be convicted of violating the noise ordinance is impossible to determine. However, there is little doubt that the Columbus officer had acquired enough evidence to suspect the driver of a violation and issue a citation. Rather than remaining silent and preparing to dispute the ticket in court, the driver refused to sign the citation and told the officer that he was going to, quote, call his sergeant friends regarding the stop. It seems clear that the Spectrum employee felt that he was being targeted or unfairly stopped at the very least. However, it is extremely important to remain as calm and silent as reasonably possible during situations such as this to preserve the opportunity to dispute the officer's assertions and the charges in court. Threatening to call in favors from other members of law enforcement and refusing to sign a citation can only serve to harm the driver's legal defense. And this interaction highlights the importance of remaining silent and composed in any police interaction. Let us know if there is an interaction or legal topic you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out my second channel for even more police interaction content.